Hello, my name is Jake Orr, and I'm going to be leading this workshop today called Support and You. I am a man in my 30s. I'm wearing a yellow jumper and a green shirt. I have green glasses on, and I'm sitting in front of a background of a bookcase with multicolored books on. This workshop is about gaining fundraising support as a disabled/neurodiverse artist. This is a slide which is blue in background with white text on saying purpose of workshop. The purpose of this workshop is to demystify how to get funding if you're disabled. I'll be providing top tips on applying and providing some funders that you might want to approach as part of fundraising that you could be doing for this. This is a slide that is split into two. It's got a white background and a blue background. On the white background, there is the text, "What do we mean by disabled?" On the blue background with white text, it reads, "Anyone who identifies as disabled and neurodiverse. Those who face barriers with being able to access work or funds to do their work." So as I'm going through this workshop today, this is what I'm referring to when I mean disabled. Anyone who might feel like that or identify as either neurodiverse or disabled, or anyone who faces barriers to be able to access work, and that includes those who are artists, those who work with artists, or those who are theatre makers making work within the industry. This workshop is tailored towards those who are artists or those who support artists. This slide has an orange background and reads, "Why might you need support?" So everyone has different access needs to allow them to make or do their work. Some access needs create barriers. We want to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to be able to apply for funding, being able to get the support that they need, and ultimately be able to do the work that they want to do. From my experience, fundraising is often inaccessible. There are long applications, complicated questions, and it means that it takes time and energy from the individual to be able to consider what happens or what to put into an application. Access to work or support can support you in being able to apply for certain funds to be able to support you in either receiving funds for you to be able to support someone to do fundraising for you, or to support you in the workplace, i.e. the rehearsal room or the creation of a show, to be able to get the best out of that process for you. We're going to be looking at different avenues for getting support. This slide has a white background and a blue background. On the white background in orange text, it reads, "Different avenues for getting support." On the blue background, it reads, "Access to work, Arts Council England access support, and other fundraising opportunities." Across this workshop, we're going to be looking at these three different areas. We'll go into what access to work is provided by the government. We'll look at access support provided by Arts Council England, and we'll also look at some other funding opportunities that you can apply for as an individual or as an artist. To begin, we'll look at access to work. This is a blue slide with the words "access to work" written on. Access to work is run by the Department for Work and Pensions. They state it is a publicly funded employment support program that aims to help more disabled people start or stay in work. It can provide practical and financial support if you have a disability or physical or mental health condition. So the important things to note from the way in which they describe themselves is that it's about providing practical support and financial support to ensure that you can do the work that you want to be doing and that you can stay in work. And crucially there, it's for those who identify as disabled or those who have a physical or mental health condition. You can claim up to £66,000 worth of support each year to be able to support you being able to do your work. And the support lasts for an entire year before you need to apply again. With access to work, I'll be covering eligibility, what it covers, self-employment, how you can apply, and the process. An orange slide with the word eligibility on. In order to be eligible for access to work, you must have a disability or health condition that means you need an aid, adaptation, or financial human support to do a job. Mental health is included in this, but it must affect your ability to be able to do your work. And when we're talking about your work in an arts context, this can mean you being able to, for example, if you're a performer, being able to perform on the stage, or if you are, let's say, a director, being able to direct in the rehearsal room. It's anything that creates a barrier for you to be able to do your work. In terms of eligibility, you must also already be doing paid work, are about to start work, or if you're self-employed, that's eligible as well, or if you have a job interview or a trial or work experience arranged through the Job Centre Plus. Just because it states that you have to have paid work already or be starting work, that's absolutely fine if you're in the process as an artist of trying to create a piece of work. Your job in this instance is being a performer or being a theatre maker, and you are in the process of creating a piece of work. That is your job. An orange slide with the words, what it covers. So when we're thinking about access to work, it's important to understand the parameters that the support can do for you. In terms of what it can cover aid and equipment in your workplace, sorry. It can cover adapting equipment to make it easier for you to be able to use. Or it could be, for example, money that goes towards extra travel costs to or from your place of work if you can't, for example, use public transport, or if you need help to adapt your vehicle. So the aid and equipment in your workshop might be, for example, translation software or software on your computer that makes it easier for you to be able to undertake computer activities. It could be, for example, that you need BSL interpretation, or that you need someone in the rehearsal room with you who can take notes as a scribe so that you can focus on the work itself. All of that will be eligible when it comes to access to work. It might be, for example, that when we're thinking about your travel costs, for whatever reasons that you may have, that you might find that traveling on public transport, for example, is too debilitating for you, and therefore you need to have taxis to and from a rehearsal room. Or it might be that your disability means that you can't use public transport, and therefore you need an adaptive form of transport. All of that is covered within access to work. This is a slide that says self-employment on an orange background. If you're self-employed, which the majority of artists and theatre makers will be, you don't need to necessarily go via a business. You just need to ensure that you have a unique tax reference number and CV. And when I'm referring to a business, I mean, you don't necessarily need to already have an employer who can, for example, support you in being able to apply for access to work. As a self-employed individual, as a sole trader, as long as you have a unique tax reference number, you'll be able to apply for access to work. It's worth noting that you don't get taxed on access to support work, and it does not affect your other benefits that you may or may not be on. I'm now going to show you some examples of access to work in an artistic context to give you some examples of how you might be able to apply for access to work. On the screen, it says examples of access to work in practice. This is a split screen with a blue background and a white background, and it lists an example of an access to work opportunity for an artist. In this example, an artist has ADHD and is self-employed. They struggle to manage their time, process large amounts of information, and to remember things. They're currently undergoing an R&D as the lead artist. So in this example, you could use an access worker to support them to take notes during the R&D. This could include the planning of the R&D schedule so that they can remember when key decisions are made and provide simplified information related to the R&D, its research and outcomes. So here, an access worker enables the artist who, as I said, struggles with being able to process large amounts of information and to remember things, who has ADHD, to be able to focus on the work that's in front of them. It means that the access worker can take the time to be able to take notes, support the planning, and allow for the artist to focus on the work in front of them. Another example here is a director who runs a theatre company is deaf. They lip read and they use BSL, often with an interpreter present. This company is mounting a revival of a show with hearing actors and will be working with a co-producer for this work. The director is directing this show. Now, the director could use access to work to hire a BSL interpreter to support their work within the theatre company, including during meetings with the co-producers. They could also utilise hired BSL interpreters during the rehearsals and remounting of the production to ensure that they can communicate with the hearing actors. In this example, the director is able to communicate effectively because they have the BSL interpreter, which has been funded through Access to Work. They are able to attend meetings, they're able to undertake their work in the rehearsal room, and they're able to communicate across the entire team as a result of that BSL interpretation. The important thing to remember in this example, or these examples, is it's about the individual who is able to apply for access support work. It's not necessarily about the others that they're working with. It just so happens in this example that it will benefit the entire team, but the process here and the support is for the director who is deaf. Here is another example that I want you to think about. An artist is physically disabled, and it impacts their ability to use computers. They don't currently have an adaptive means to engage with their work, but they are developing a new theatre show. How do you think access to work can help them? Feel free to pause this video and to take a few moments to think about this example. Hopefully you've had some time to think about this particular scenario. So if an artist is physically disabled and it impacts their use of computers, the examples that you might have come up with might included using access to work to be able to have adaptation software on their computer that means that they are able to interact with it better. This could include transcribing software, or perhaps it is a screen reader, which means that they're able to access the information on their screen easier. It could be that you have thought about the fact that they could bring in an access support worker so that they can support with the use of a computer to be able to ensure that they are able to type up notes, send out emails, or to just be able to bring together their research or to help them to compile their research utilizing a computer. All of this will mean that they're able to focus on their theatre show as they develop it, and that those barriers that were originally there can be removed. Next, we're going to look at how you can apply to access to support. This is a orange background with the words how to apply. A split background, white and blue. In order to apply, you can do so via the gov.uk website or via phone. It's worth noting that there are optional routes here for the phone if you need Relay UK or BSL video relay services. As part of the application process, you will need contact details, your workplace address and postcode, and remember that if you're self-employed, this will be more than likely your place of work, as in your home. Information about how your condition affects your work and what support you think you need. And details of a workplace contact who confirm that you work there if you're employed, or if you're self-employed, a unique tax reference number. This is an orange background with the words "Take Note." A case member of the Access to Work team might be in contact with you to talk about your application. This can take 16 weeks. They might ask, for example, for more information about your work and your disability or health conditions. They will ask for permission to speak to your employer, or they'll arrange for an assessor to call you or view your workplace by video call or in person to find out what changes might need. Other things to note: your claim can be backdated. So despite the fact it can take up to 16 weeks for this process, if you are successful, you can backdate your claim from the day in which you made your online application. You will also need to renew any access to work support before the end date of your grant. Remember that the grant only lasts for 1 year, so you can reapply at least 3 months before the end of this to ensure that your support is continued. You should presume that access to work staff do not understand the arts or theatre, and that they won't understand the specific circumstances in which you are working in. So make sure that you talk about your work in as much detail as you can, and you talk about the barriers that you particularly face. You claim for access support on a monthly basis based upon the work that you have had support on or utilize. For example, you might have already paid for the support of a BSL interpreter or for software, and you are claiming back for this. This is an orange slide that reads the process. I'm going to take you through the process of applying to access to work support. First, you'll be applying via an application form. You'll then have the initial Access to Work advisor call you to discuss what help you might need to get. They might ask for additional information, such as what your access needs are, information related to your day-to-day work, or other information that may not be clear to them in order for them to be able to properly assess your application. This could include a visit from an assessor to your place of work. A decision will then be made as to whether or not you'll be awarded the grant. You then have 4 weeks to accept the grant with the relevant declarations. It's important to note that this process is lengthy and it does take time. There are lots of resources available online for you to be able to find out what information you may be needing in order to apply. Also, check out the gov.uk website for further information about the process and also the questions that they may ask you. If in doubt, do speak to them. The Access team are there to support you to be able to put in the best application that you can in order to be able to ensure that you get your support. When I have worked with individual artists who have applied for Access to Work, a piece of advice that they have given me is always to make sure that you're clear in what support that you require. Don't necessarily downplay what that may be. Represent the support or barriers that you face on a day in which you are at your worst. How does it stop you from being able to do your work? And therefore, what support might you need in order to be able to get over that particular barrier? Remember that this is all about supporting you being able to get the relevant support that you need. So don't downplay it. Make sure that you're clear in what the ideal circumstances are or the ideal environment, adaptations, etc., that you need in order to be able to apply. This is a blue background slide with the words Arts Council England Access Support. Arts Council England want to ensure that there are no barriers for anyone who's applying to their grant programme. In order to make sure there are no barriers, you can apply for an access support worker. An access support worker can help you to apply for any of the Arts Council England grant programmes. This includes the National Lottery project grants and developing your creative practice. The great thing about the access support is Arts Council England will pay for that access worker, and normally they will pay for 3 to 5 days or more if required of an access support worker's time. The great thing about being able to apply for the access to support work from Arts Council England is it's incredibly straightforward, and 9 times out of 10, they are likely to accept the application for access support work. This is a split slide with a white background and a blue background. The blue background has the areas that we're going to be covering in this section, which includes eligibility, what it covers, how you can apply, and the process for applying. A slide which has orange background and the word eligibility. The great thing about the access support from Arts Council England is anyone who identifies as disabled or neurodiverse can apply. You don't need to have proof, unlike access support work from the government. So if you feel like you do have barriers or you are neurodiverse, you are able to, very straightforward, apply to Arts Council England to be able to get the support. What it covers. An access support worker can work with you to ensure that you don't have any barriers to be able to apply for the Arts Council England's funding streams. They can support you in whatever way that you need in order to be able to get over that barrier to be able to submit an application. So they can work with you in a number of different ways. It might be, for example, that you have particular access needs, which means that you are not able to process large amounts of information, or that the actual application process needs to be explained for you. An access worker can do that for you. It's important to note that there are things that the access and support work for Arts Council England does not cover. It does not support the development of the ideas related to the project. It can't, for example, cover an access support worker doing research or having meetings on your behalf as you develop the idea. The Access and Support Work Programme is there to support you in the actual applying to Arts Council England, and that's where the support is focused. Here are some examples of access support in practice. This is a split screen with a white background and a blue background. On the blue background, it reads, "An artist has autism and struggles to process large amounts of information. They can easily get distracted and struggle to stick to deadlines." In this instance, they could use an access worker to support them in breaking down Arts Council England's application form. They can go through the individual questions and demystify it for them. They can set a plan for answering questions, including deadlines, in order to keep them on track. In this instance, what the access support worker is doing is they're breaking down the application process to ensure that this person with autism is able to understand the process, breaking it down step by step and ensuring that they are able to go through the questions, have set deadlines that they can work towards being able to break down the application and ultimately keeping them on track. Another example for you. An artist has depression, which leaves them unmotivated and struggling to complete tasks. In this instance, an access worker could provide support in creating a manageable plan to complete the application form. They can have regular check-ins and meetings with the applicant in order to check their process and keep track of completed tasks so that the artist can clearly see achievements on the application. This means that the artist can work through their barriers of being unmotivated or that their depression forces upon them in order to be able to work through the application process step by step and ultimately have accountability for that artist to be able to get the get the work done. Here is another example that I want you to think about. An artist is dyslexic and has dyspraxia. They struggle to read large amounts of text, input data into forms, and input work on a computer. Have a think about what an access support worker could do for them. Feel free to pause the video, take down some notes, and come back once you've had an opportunity to think through. Hopefully you've had a chance to think this question through. In this instance, an access support worker could work with the artist to read out loud the large piece of text or to proofread the text for them. The access support worker can, for example, transcribe any of their conversations that they have with the artist talking out loud their ideas. the access worker can transcribe, and then finesse this into written prose that answers the questions. The access support worker can also input data onto the Arts Council systems on behalf of the artists. Let's move on to how you apply. This is a slide on an orange background with the words how to apply. There are two routes in which you can apply for Arts Council England's access support. You can ask to be matched with a support worker through an Arts Council England form. This will be if you don't currently have someone in mind. If you do already have an access support worker that you know can work with you, you can apply directly to Arts Council England with this level of support. So you either ask Arts Council to match you with someone, or you can have your own support worker work with you. In both of these instances, you'll have to fill out a simple application form online, or you can call Arts Council England and they can fill it out for you over the phone. This is a slide with a white background and a blue background. On the blue background, it reads, "You will need," and it lists the information that you're going to need to be able to apply for Arts Council England Access Support Programme. So you're going to need details of what barriers you face. You're going to need what the project is that you need support on. And this is just a brief outline, description, a couple of lines, just to talk about what it is. You can outline the details of your support worker if you have one already, or you can list the barriers that you face because of your access needs, and therefore how an access support worker can support you in this. You will need to provide a breakdown of the support that the support worker will be assisting you in, so that they can clearly see how that support worker will work with you, and also the required amount of time that you need to be able to work with your support worker. Arts Council England will read through the applications that come through via their support form. If you don't have an access support worker, they will attempt to match you with one of the Arts Council England's vetted access support workers. Now, it's worth noting here that it can take up to 3 weeks for Arts Council England to do that matchmaking. There's also no guarantee that you will get matched with someone. So it's good to think about if there is anyone that you might know who already offers access support. It's also important to note that an access support worker does not necessarily have to be someone who does this for a living. It might be that they are a fellow artist or someone that you have previously collaborated with in a rehearsal room setting, or someone that you have worked with, maybe they're a performer or a director. It's someone who'll be able to work with you to ensure that you're able to work through your barriers to be able to apply. It's also worth noting that if you're successful with your particular grant from Arts Council England, that you can include access provision within that actual application. And it's also worth noting that Arts Council England treats any kind of access provision separately. This means that if you're applying for up to £30,000, which is the smaller grants from Arts Council National Portfolio Projects funding stream, that you can apply for £30,000 for your project, and on top of that, additional money towards access provision. This means that you could be, for example, putting in an application for £40,000. £30,000 of that is for your project, £10,000 is for your access provision for yourself or others who are part of your team. It's important to take note that it does take time to be able to receive the information from Arts Council England for the matchmaking process, And as I said, that it might be quicker and easier if you apply with someone that you already know. You're going to have to demonstrate to Arts Council England, or the access worker will, that the work has been completed in order for them to be able to get their funding from Arts Council England. And what I mean by this is that you're going to have to keep, or the access support worker will have to keep documentation of the work that you do together. They will also need to have your application number from the Grantium system, which is Arts Council England's funding system, once the application has been submitted. And just a reminder, Arts Council England pays for the access support worker. This means that you can get on with you being able to apply for the Arts Council England's funding without necessarily needing to worry about having to pay someone to support you. This is a blue slide with the words Arts Council England Access Support. Arts Council England wants to ensure that there are no barriers for an applicant to be able to apply for their funding streams. This means that you can apply for an access support worker to support you in applying for a particular funding stream. An access support worker is paid for by Arts Council England. They can pay for 3 to 5 days, depending on the access support time that you need, but they can also pay for more time should it be needed. The great thing about access support from Arts Council England is that the process for applying is really straightforward. This is a slide on a white background and a blue background. The blue background reads eligibility, what it covers, how you apply, and the process. I'm now going to take you through each of these in turn. An orange background with the word eligibility. In order to apply to Arts Council England's access support, you need to be able to identify as disabled or neurodiverse. This is self-identified. Arts Council England does not need any proof in order for you to be able to get an access support worker. This means that you'll be able to define it for yourself. In terms of what it covers, an access support worker can do a whole range of different things to ensure that you are able to apply for Arts Council England's funding streams. It's worth noting that this applies across all of Arts Council's funding streams, including the National Lottery project grants and developing your creative practice. An access support worker can be used to ensure that you are able to remove barriers that you might face to be able to apply. This could be, for example, that an access support worker helps to transcribe or write the application with you. It might be that you have someone to turn the application into simplified questions for you to make it easier for you to be able to understand or process what you have to apply with. It's really important to note that there are some things that Arts Council England's access support does not cover. Areas that it does not cover include supporting the development of the ideas of the project. So an access worker can't necessarily help you to develop the idea into full project. They can't, for example, support you in conducting research or attending meetings on your behalf or with you. They are specifically there to work on the application itself and to ensure that you are able to apply with the application for Arts Council England. Examples of access support in practice. I'm now going to show you 3 different examples that you might want to consider in order to give you a sense of what you can use the access support work for. This is a split screen again, with a white background and the blue background. On the blue background, the example reads, "An artist has autism and struggles to process large amounts of information. They can get easily distracted and struggle to stick to deadlines." So in this instance, this artist could use an access worker to support them in breaking down the application form itself. They can set a plan for answering questions, which might include deadlines, in order for them to keep on track. So here, the access worker is working with the artist to ensure that that large application form is broken down, that they can work together slowly across the application, so that the applicant themselves can have deadlines that they're working towards, and also that they're working as part of a plan to break down the application and to set clearly and manageable goals for them to be able to work through the application form. An access support worker is there to support on the application itself. Here is another example for you. An artist has depression, which leaves them unmotivated and struggling to complete tasks. Think about how this may work in relation to the application form. So they could, for example, have an access worker who can provide support in creating a manageable plan to complete the application form. They can have regular check-ins with the support worker to ensure that they're making progress and to keep them on track for completed tasks so the artist can clearly see achievements on the application itself. So in this instance, an access worker can allow the artists to work through the challenges that they have with their depression, and it allows them to feel motivated by setting clear goals as part of a manageable plan. Working with the access support worker, in this instance, they have accountability by the regular check-ins that they have, and so that they can clearly see that they're making progress with the application itself. Here is another example that I want you to think about. In this example, an artist is dyslexic and they have dyspraxia. They struggle to read large amounts of text, input data into forms and on a computer. Have a think about what an access support worker can do for them. Feel free to pause the video and take a few moments to consider this. Hopefully you've had a chance to consider what you might want to do in relation to this scenario. In this scenario, it might be that they can work with an access support worker to speak out loud their answers so that the access support worker can transcribe the answers that they have. It might be that the access support worker will read through the application process for them, and that they read out loud the questions, and that they work question by question to think through how they're going to answer it. It could also be that the access support worker enters the information on Grantium, which is the Arts Council England's grant system. It could be that the access support worker also enters the information onto a budget for them to ensure that they're able to process this. The support worker can also proofread and make sure that with the artist's dyslexia, that there are no spelling mistakes or challenges with them understanding what they have written. These are all different ways in which an access support worker might be able to work with this particular artist, but perhaps you came up with other suggestions as well. So how do you apply? This is an orange background with the words "how to apply." There are two routes in which you can apply for Arts Council England's access to support work. This can be done online via the Arts Council's website, or over the phone. With this, you need to be able to demonstrate that you either have an access support worker in mind to work with, or that you want Arts Council England to match you with a vetted Arts Council support worker. Here is a screen that's split into a white background and a blue background. On the blue background, it lists the different things that you're going to need to be able to apply for this particular support. You're going to need details of what barriers you face. This will include a list of the various things that you find challenging. You're going to have to talk about what the project is that you want support on. Don't go into too much details about this. It's just a couple of lines that information want to understand in order to best understand who the best support worker might be based upon the project itself. They want to know details of your support worker, if you have one, and a breakdown of how the support worker will assist you. This means that Arts Council England can know and understand how that support worker will work with you. They also need a breakdown of the time that's going to be required. Remember, Arts Council England will normally support 3 to 5 days support. Arts Council England will read through the application form and approve the application. If you have asked to be matched with an application with an access support worker, it's really important here to take note. So here is an orange background with the words "take note." It can take up to 3 weeks to hear back from Arts Council England because they get an awful lot of requests, and that the matchmaking process is not a guarantee that they'll definitely be able to pair you with someone. So it's important to consider, is there anyone else that you could potentially work with to be your support worker? It's important to note here that in this instance, an access support worker does not need to necessarily be trained or be doing this as part of their full-time job. An access worker could be a producer, an artist, or someone that you have worked with, maybe a friend or family member, who can support you to ensure that you're able to put in this application. As a reminder, it's Arts Council that pays for the actual application, access support worker. So in this instance, Arts Council England will be able to pay for that person, which means that you can get on straight away to be able to do the work together. It's also really important to note here that Arts Council England access provision work can also be included in your application itself. So if you or any of your collaborators have particular access needs, they can work, so if any of one that you're working with or has access needs, you can include this within your application itself. So, for example, if there is someone on your team that may need a support worker in the rehearsal room, or maybe it's BSL interpretation, you can include this within your actual application, and Arts Council England will treat this as separately to the pot of money that you're applying for. This means, for example, that if you're applying for the National Lottery project grants of up to £30,000, which is their small grants, you can apply on top of that £30,000 for additional access support. If you have any questions related to the Arts Council England's access provision, it is best to contact Arts Council England directly via their website, which has a live chat, via their phone lines, or via email. Arts Council England's access team are really great at responding and are there to help you should you need it. This is a blue background with the words "Other Funders." I'm now going to take you through a couple of other ways in which you might be able to apply for funding in order to be able to support yourself as a disabled or neurodiverse artist. This is a split screen, white on blue. On the blue side, we have three suggestions. We've got unlimited, grey eye, and any others. Unlimited are a specific arts organisation that commissions and supports disabled artists. They have been running since 2012, and since this time, they've commissioned over 500 artists with £5.8 million worth of support. Each year, they regularly have commissioning opportunities specifically for disabled artists to apply for. Keep an eye out on the Unlimited website for when they have these commissions available. It's also worth noting that as a disabled-friendly organisation, they also offer access support for anyone who might want to apply for one of their commissions. Working in a similar way to Arts Council England access support, they'll be able to support you in having someone apply on your behalf or with you on the particular commission. Grey Eye. Grey Eye are a brilliant disability-led company. They've been running for many years now, and through their work, they produce disabled-led work as well as running training initiatives and opportunities for disabled or neurodiverse artists. They have a particular stream called Beyond. Beyond is a bespoke artist development scheme which is tailored towards artists who are disabled. You get to work with Grey Eye for a period of 6 months to a year to be able to work on particular upskilling of your particular artistic practice. This can include workshops, funding for your work, and support in being able to elevate your work to the next level. Other sorts of funders that you might be aware of may also offer access support or opportunities for disabled artists. It's always useful to keep an ear out for other kind of funding opportunities that might be available. For example, Disability Arts Network regularly send out opportunities related to funders or commissioning opportunities for disabled-led artists. You might want to just spend a moment thinking about other sorts of networks, companies, or schemes that you're aware of that supports disabled or neurodiverse artists to be able to do their work or access funds to be able to apply for their work to happen. Take a moment to consider what this might be. This is a blue background with the words top fundraising tips. When it comes to being able to apply for fundraising, I've got some top tips for you. As I mentioned earlier, it's really important that you don't downplay your disability and what your needs are to do your work. You want to make sure that in any kind of fundraising that you're doing, that you outline really clearly, this is the level of support that I need in order to be able to do my work at its best. Don't downplay your disabilities. Make sure you ask for what you need. As well as this, make sure that you're realistic about the financial costs in terms of being able to get the support that you need. Don't be afraid to be realistic in that cost. Don't be put off by the costs that it takes to have, for example, adaptation equipment or an access support worker with you. Funders are aware of the costs and they understand that actually getting support for a disabled individual costs a lot of money. So just be clear in how much you request and how you justify this. A lot of funders now offer easy read guides or alternative simplified versions of fundraising guidance. If you can't find this, Drop a company an email to see whether they offer this. It might be that this is just slightly hidden on their website. When I work with artists, I always find the easy read guides to be a great opportunity for us to be able to talk through a particular application or just to find out further information related to a fund. The easy read guides are there to simplify the information and just to make it as easy as possible to read, understand what you might need. Before you begin any kind of fundraising activity, I would always ensure that you understand what it is that you want fundraising support for or with, what the project is, and all those different aspects that you're going to need to be funded. Also, when you consider applying for a certain fund, look up in advance what those questions are so that you know all the different things you're going to get asked and also what you might need to prepare or bring together in documentation for the questions itself. Having all of that information at hand will mean that you know what you need to be able to apply, but also it means that you'll have everything ready and you'll be able to work with an access support worker to bring that information together if you're working with one of those. A blue background with the word resources. There are also a number of great online websites that you can utilize to find out further information about gaining funding or support if you're disabled or neurodiverse. For example, Disability Online or Disability Arts Online have a great level of resources available on their website, including how-to guides of applying for access to work from the government or access work from Arts Council England. They also have great information related to various funds which are currently open or additional funders beyond Arts Council England. You can also look at Shape Arts, which are a great organisation that works with artists and those who work in the artistic fields to be able to apply for funding or that they put out funding opportunities on their website. Sign up to their newsletter to make sure that you receive the latest information as and when they release that. You can also check out the In Good Company website for further information, workshops, guides, and information that they may be publishing related to access to work, information for applying for set funds, the workshops that In Good Company offer, or other opportunities for you as artists to get involved in. Another great resource that you might want to use is those who are around you as part of the disabled community or neurodiverse community that you may or may not be part of. Look out for groups that you might be able to connect with. That could be WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, or just generally online groups. Being able to utilize and share the knowledge between different communities is really important when it comes to fundraising and getting funds for your specific work. And remember, never be afraid to ask for help or support when it comes to fundraising or for you being able to get the best work possible done in a rehearsal room or through a creative process. I hope this workshop has been useful for you and that you have found that it has been useful and you've gotten lots from it. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop In Good Company a line or look out for other workshops that they may be doing related to this subject or other areas of fundraising or indeed getting work on. Thank you so much.